name is Justin, and I am an addict. And thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowship of other addicts, I am grateful to be sober one day at a time. My date of sobriety is June 19th of 2015, and I've been working the rooms of recovery since September of 2013. I'm grateful to be sober one day at a time. Welcome to the 101st RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting. We're excited to have you here. RICO 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds, and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships and identify with addictions with such variety as alcoholism, drugs, food, sex, gambling, theft, codependency, and several anon groups, just to name a few. Each Friday at noon Central Time, we hold a live lunch hour speaker meeting with a recovering addict from anywhere on earth, pertaining to any or no faith tradition, and with any background who shares their experience, strength, and hope on a specified recovery topic of their choice. For the 12-week period, going through May 20th, so next week is our last week of this 12-week period, we are focusing on each of the 12 steps of recovery. Our speaker today, Nicki M squared, we call her Nicki M squared at this point, will share for 20 to 25 minutes on her experience with step 11. And then the live audience gets the opportunity to ask questions of her for another 20 to 25 minutes. We get weekly invitations to join us. Please go to rico12.com/join us and submit your email address there to get on the reminders and links to get those emails out. This last week, I'm grateful that we got another 5-star rating from Lila B9, who says, as a newcomer, this podcast helped save my life. Wow. Each episode has offered me something precious to my spiritual recovery, an amazing supplement to working the steps. I can't stop sharing episodes or listening to them myself. Thank you. Well, that's super powerful and very kind of you to say, Lila. I appreciate that. I'm honored that RICO 12 is providing that kind of support to you. Thanks. Now, if any of you out there also find RICO 12 to be of help, please go and write a review, rate us. It helps us get that message out to more addicts who suffer and hopefully save some lives in the process. Donations are greatly appreciated, and details on doing that will be in the chat of the live meeting as well as on the show notes of the podcast. Now we look forward each week to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. A quick disclaimer. While we hope that these episodes will be helpful to both sponsors and sponsees alike, these 12 weeks of episodes are not intended to replace the necessity of working with a sponsor through the steps. We will not be working the steps in these meetings. They are meant only to be a supplement and informative reference on what the steps mean and why they are important to the individual speaking about them. Now, step 11 reads, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, here's a little bit about Nicki M. Nicki M is new to these recovery rooms. Before September of 2021, she was an undiagnosed addict for nearly 30 years before finding the 12-step big book sponsorship lifestyle. Nicki flew through the 12 steps and began sponsoring women right away. She continues to do her best to show her children and herself to do the next right thing. Nicki believes deeply in the power of prayer and meditation and found her yogi life prior to these rooms aligns with recovery beautifully. Without questioning how she found Spiritual Gangsters Fellowship, Nicki M strives every moment to live these steps. This simple but not always easy recipe. She is forever grateful for finding her God, the pioneers of AA, the Zoom and face-to-face meetings, her service work, sponsees, children, beautifully healthy relationship, and the list goes on. It truly works if we work it. Take it away, Nicki. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Justin, for offering this space and this platform to share our experience, strength, and hope with each other. And my name is Nicki M squared through my fellowship at Spiritual Gangsters. The OG Nicki M graciously gave me that nickname. So I hail from Sacramento area here in California and have been living the sober life nearly 8 months now through Spiritual Gangsters, and I'm a multidisciplinary addict. So I belong to multiple rooms. I had no idea that I was an addict, and I remember the day that I found out that I qualified not only for sex and love addiction, but for AA for OA, for all the different things, CODA, you name it, I qualify for it. The only thing I've never tried were any of the harder drugs. That was the only thing that I never did. But I can't tell you how much it's changed my life to be in these rooms. I came in through Zoom. I only knew recovery through these Zoom links. And I've only just started going out into the world and finding my face-to-face fellowship locally here. So to start off, really to qualify, I basically, I had this hole in my heart. Yeah, it was in the shape of God that I didn't know was in the shape of God. I just knew that something was off for me. I wasn't quite feeling comfortable in my own skin from my really early age, 13 or so. I remember just feeling really not safe in my own skin, feeling really desperate and anxious to fit in and to survive. And so I sought out men and boyfriends and validation and all kinds of, vices out there, right? Started smoking cigarettes at 6th grade, stealing cigarettes from, the friends' moms' purses, and drinking boons, in the little wine glasses, pretending like I was so cool, with my friends, and smoking weed by 8th grade. It was just like trying all these different things, trying to fit into whatever group was in front of me. And that included the boyfriends that I was with. So I would change the habits to make sure that the other person was satisfied with me. So the clothes that I wore, the music that I listened to, all was adjusted for that person. And that included even girlfriends, friends, but it was mostly the romantic relationships that I was just so like desperate. I have to have a boyfriend. If I don't have a boyfriend, then what am I? Who am I as a person? So that sense of just belonging and needing to feel comfortable, again, it just kept coming back to this, this obsessive thought issue where I just would become obsessed with the person, or with the thought, or with the drug, or with the alcohol, and just stuff, or with the food. I struggled with food for a long time too, like just stuffing that God-shaped hole with all of these other things, and never seeing like, okay, I do have a spiritual side of me, but never really owning it, right? Never really walking it and living it, until much later. So I got married, in a kind of a loveless marriage from the beginning. It was like, I always describe it as the round peg with the square hole, or vice versa, whatever. You're trying to force something in. It just wasn't working. It just didn't work. And I just kept showing up for it, going, please work, please work, please work. And I was all up in my addiction, just really a mess. And so for my 30s, it was really kind of like a blur. Basically, I would just go and throw myself into work, because work I could control and I was really good at it. And I just got really good at that. And then I would come home and it was just this toxic relationship, toxic environment. At one point, my mattress actually had like a dent in it from my body being in that bed as much as it was, because I just did not have this desire to live, really. And so the moment my now ex-husband told me, I want a divorce, I just like threw myself. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back, basically. And I just, I wanted the divorce, but I didn't want him to tell me that he wanted the divorce. So I went into outpatient program actually for depression and suicide. And I still don't know recovery yet. I still don't know addiction. Nobody's talking to me about it. I still don't know any of that. So then I'm going to this outpatient program. I'm seeing people who are really genuinely like trying to end their life, like wanting to open the window and jump out. And I wasn't there, but I was still like, the thoughts were still obsessing about it. So they wanted to put me on all kinds of medicine. I would go to the psychiatrist and they'd be like, here's, this is what I'm having, this side effect from this medicine. And they're like, oh, let's add another medicine, and just kept adding this laundry list of meds, and nothing was working. So I tried it all, in terms of the medical kind of Western traditional route. And I just stopped all of that cold turkey. I don't recommend that. Obviously, talk to your doctor. Everyone's going to have a different experience. But for me, it just wasn't working. It wasn't helping. Nothing was working outside of in the material world, right? And so then I started going to this meditation center, which was a local area meditation center. And they were talking about meditation and, you know, slowing down and looking at, you know, the beauty of the world. And I just couldn't see the beauty of the world. And they would tell me things like, just imagine your thoughts are like clouds floating over you, you know, above you, and that your thoughts are not you, and that you are not those thoughts. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, I just was like, I was so irritated and discontent with my life that I couldn't relax into it. But slowly, as I kept practicing it every single day, waking up with the same routine every single day, it started to get easier and easier and easier. So I actually threw myself into studying meditation, spirituality. I studied it every single day. I was meditating probably 2 or 3 times a day, at one point 3 or 4 times a day. I would do what's called like a priming exercise, basically. So I had to kind of teach myself how to be in the world again after coming out of that really dark space. And so I would go, and like an hour before I had to go into my classroom to teach, I would just like do this whole priming thing where I would kind of boost up my energy and find what I was grateful for. And it was using all these different techniques, you know, meditation as well as affirmations and all these other things, music and all of that too. So again, this is before recovery, before any of this. And then I was starting the spiritual track, right? And really diving deep into it. And then I thought, I'm going to start teaching this to my students. So the moment I started teaching meditation to my students, it started to sink in more for me, because the moment I gave it away, like just recovery talks about, the moment you give it away, you get to keep it. So I kept giving it away, and students were really responding nicely to it. And I was feeling better. I was feeling more and more confident. Meanwhile, there was a bunch of shit that was obviously still happening. I was still having to, get divorced and pay for that. And at one point I had to watch and monitor every single dollar. So that addiction, the sex and love addiction, was still very active. But I was actually seeking out men to go and actually just even eat a proper meal. So I'd go on this date with this one guy and, please, can you pay for the meal? And then 6 months later, I'm buying a house with this guy. I'm going into business with this guy. I did not see the addiction yet. And so that didn't end well. It ended really poorly. And I had to really reassess for myself, what are my values? Who am I as a person? And I came back to my practice, and it really did help. And I kept going with building my own little meditation business, which was always kind of a dream of mine, to have my own little business. But on this, so here I am living this spiritual life, but behind the scenes, I'm still a wreck. I'm still drinking a ton, still going to the bar, still dating emotionally unavailable men, still, really active in my addiction. So I met one person, and he was a gambling, addicted to gambling, and he was full on admitting it and going to meetings about it. So like a good little codependent, I was looking up gambling addiction meetings for him and all this. And then I realized, okay, there was this questionnaire somehow that popped up, and I realized that I qualified for some of these programs as well. So then I started to go to sex and love addiction meetings. I don't know how I found Spiritual Gangsters, but I did. I clicked on the Zoom link, and I just saw OG Nicki just yelling into the camera, get up out of yourself, get up out of your dirty diaper and live your life. You're not meant to live in this desperation, So it really called to me. The whole model, the workshop, the workbook, the way that they approach it is just so powerful and so life changing. And I needed that kind of sense of urgency to really wake me up, right? To really get me up out of myself. So I just flew, I dived deep into that, and I attached myself to that fellowship. And I flew through the steps, like I was saying, and I started sponsoring women. And it just, I weave in meditation, even in my sponsee meetings, we do a meditation before we get started. And it doesn't have to be this long drawn out process, to actually have a meditation practice. It doesn't have to have the perfect little pillow and the incense holder and the statues and all the books and all that. It doesn't, we overcomplicate it. Yeah. I feel like I overcomplicated it for a long time. And so the moment I found myself actually being able to meditate, even amongst the chaos, there's kids melting down and noises in the background and all this. And I can still find that calm space and that calm moment. And that's when I knew that it was starting to become a working part of my mind. And so the more I teach it and the more I talk about it, it helps to affirm it, to actually rewire the brain, to let me know that no matter what is happening, and I think I've said this even in meetings before, I know now for no matter what has gone on in my life, that I'm okay, that I'm safe, that I'm held by some kind of force and power that is greater than all of us. I know that I don't have to tell my heart to beat. Thank goodness. I don't have to tell the trees to grow or the leaves to, the flowers to bloom or the wind to blow or the sun to rise. Something else is in charge of that. There's a power greater than myself that is allowing me to even sit in this chair and speak to you all through this technology. I should have been dead many different times in my life because of my addiction struggles, doing behaviors and activities that were really unhealthy, really not of sound mind, even in the last couple of years. And so I really have to just let forgiveness wash over me, let peace wash over me, let calmness of mind wash over me, and notice when I'm off, notice when I'm, not feeling connected, and what am I going to do about it? So if I notice a thought that's coming in that's not in column 5 is what we call it in our spiritual gangsters, if it's not in love, if it's not connected to source or to higher power, then I don't move. I pause, I take it easy, I relax. It's not time to make a decision. It's just time to sit and just let the storm clouds pass over me. Until the storm clouds pass, then I move. If I'm seeing good, nice sunny clouds above me, and that I'm living in column 5, and I'm happy and I'm joyous and free, which is what God wants me to be, then I can move. And this is true of my relationship as well. So in my romantic relationship, if I'm feeling irritable, discontent, angry, I need to take a pause. I need to take a break. I mean, when we were kids, we called it time out. I don't know why we don't use the time out as grownups. If we know our phone is going to die, we charge it, we plug it in. If we know that we are going to not make the right, choice, we can pause. We have that ability. I can pause. And the only thing that I am truly responsible for is my response to my environment, to my world. I can either choose response or reaction. Reaction is when I'm in column 4. Reaction is when I'm in fear mode. Reaction is snarky, sarcastic comments, which is still a freaking character defect of mine that I'm still working on. I can see the snarky comment and I'm like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And I say it anyway. Damn it. I say it anyway. And I just okay, I just watched that movie play out and I'm not going to do that again. And then I do it again the next day. And it's just like seeing that sidewalk hole, right? The hole in the sidewalk, and just keep walking into that hole. And that's the definition of insanity. That's the progressive disease that we have, right? That's the expecting different results, but doing the same behaviors again and again and again. I know if I don't drink enough water, Ajane, if I don't drink enough water, if I don't exercise, then I feel off. I don't feel good about myself, right? So if God, if higher power, if spiritual toolkits, all these things are kind of like, yeah, I don't really connect with it. If that's not you yet, it's okay. That's what I love about this program, is that you get to decide what works for you. And, I think that the main thing is that people get hung up on I have to follow it exactly to a T, right? And I think that it is a recipe, but it's not a religion. It's not rigid. It's a way of being. It's an existence. Like Buddhism and Hinduism is not a religion per se. It's this is a lens in which we look through the world, right? It's like, how do we want to show up for ourselves, for other people? We want to live in a safe, calm, peaceful environment. So it starts with us. If we are calm and peaceful, then that's what shows up for us. That's what I believe, is that there's energy vibrating all around us, right? That there's actually a force field kind of around us. And so we can actually change the environment based on how we're feeling. So if we're feeling calm and peaceful, which is what meditation has given me, I mean, step 11 is just so the moment I read it, I was like, okay, I can do that. I'm actually doing that. I'm ready to do that. So I actually focus in on a lot of these things. At the end of the day, I really ask myself a lot of these questions, and I'm not 100% of the time. I just want to make sure that we know that it's not about perfection. Giving up perfectionism is really, really, it's a daily practice. So on awakening, when I first wake up, when I was first in recovery, I started to go down the laundry list of all the problems that I needed to solve. Now I wake up and I'm going down the laundry list of all the gratitude that I have, all the things that I actually get to do. I get to be a mom. I get to be alive. Thank you, God. I get to be alive today. So the miracles that are there. And then I go right into prayer. I do the third step prayer, which is why I chose it for today to close out, because it's about thy will. Please show me thy will for me. What am I supposed to do? What shall you have me do? So I have signs all over handwritten signs all over my apartment that says, what shall you have me do? What shall you have me do, God? Please show me. And it's not in like desperation, like, oh my God, I need, it's just like, what's the next right thing? What's the next right thing? Okay, I probably need to, take a shower, right? If I haven't taken a shower yet, or I need to brush my teeth, or I need to get up and just go for a walk. If I've been sitting in front of this freaking computer for hours and hours, right? It's like, how do I just notice and just listen? And so prayer is talking to God, right? Prayer is talking, asking, requesting. And you get, I think over time, the prayer doesn't become about asking per se, like of specific things, like, please God, give me a boyfriend. Please God, give me a car that's like beautiful. Please God. It's like, the requests are more like affirmations for me. Like, please God, send love and peace into the hearts of the leaders of this world, right? To ensure that we live in a safe and peaceful world. Please God, shine a light over me as I navigate through the traffic in LA today or whatever. It's just like all these little things that we can kind of affirm that we want for ourselves, and then the meditation is where, for me, it's about quieting the mind. And I think a lot of people struggle with silence. That's what I'm noticing. A lot of people struggle with silence, and I struggled with it too. But I crave silence now. It's like, how do you find just those little pockets, those little moments of time where you just have nothing? It's like a detox from everything. No cell phones, nothing ringing and dinging, nothing. And if you can get into nature, that's what I really love, is taking my shoes off and actually standing on, the actual earth itself, ground itself, to ground in, right? And to literally feel Mama Earth, Pachamama. It's just like, how do you actually feel her speaking back to us, right? Like, we can actually hear her response, and what is it that she wants for us? Like, how do we take care of her? How do we make sure to nourish her? Yeah. And so like that to me is just this, how do I be of service to God and to earth and to all of it, And I ask myself, how am I feeling and how may I serve? How am I feeling? Because my emotions actually drive everything that I'm doing. Again, if I'm feeling off, if I'm feeling irritable, okay, it's time to get up out of head, and start exercising or dancing or putting on music or being playful again, having fun. Because we're supposed to have, I don't remember the last time I've had so much fun talking about shit that's like so freaking hard. I just laugh in these meetings now. I laugh because it's funny. Some of the shit that I've done in the past 30 years is freaking funny. And so to find laughter again and to make sure that I'm being playful, and I know that that's how God wants me to be. I know it. So I don't know what my time is, Justin, but
yeah, we're okay. I mean, if you want to close up now, we can. If you want to go a couple of minutes, you can wrap that up. But either way.
Okay. I said everything, but I just, I'm just so grateful. I mean, if I could just celebrate us for a minute, because I said this last night, even at my face-to-face fellowship. It's like, we are part of something really special and unique. Not a lot of people take the time to actually improve their lives. They just go on autopilot and they just run, you know what I mean? Like they don't do this kind of deep dive. So just to celebrate yourself for a minute, just to say, that I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to celebrate with you all, so that's all I had that's all that's coming up for me right now, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicki. I really appreciate your experience, strength, and hope as you related, your story and then your experience with step 11. There have been a couple of questions come in from the live audience, and I've written down several. A reminder to our live audience, if you have questions for Nicki, please type them in the Q&A link there at the bottom of your window. Looks like two speech bubbles over the top of each other, and we'll get to those questions. I want to start off with something that really I struggle with, and I spend a good amount of time in meditation, in prayer every morning as I start off my day, but I cannot, that silence that you talk about, it is so hard for me to do. In fact, I plug in earbuds and have guided meditation rather than silent meditation. What is your suggestion or your experience on creating that silence and being able to do that through a noisy brain and a noisy lifestyle?
That's a good question. It's almost like there's two trains of thought happening at the same time, right? So there's just like your everyday thoughts, your everyday thinking, like, oh, I should probably do this. This is due now. I should probably turn this in, right? Like, or, I need to pay this bill, or I need to clean the house, or whatever, all these things that are happening. But then in the background, it's like this, I use mantras a lot. I use like love and peace or thank you, and just kind of slowing down my world to pay attention to those words more often, right? So that's how I kind of start. But that silences my thoughts as well. Like it kind of slows down my world. Just trying it, maybe setting the timer even for like a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm just like no noise whatsoever, and just trying that on. It's just like your anything that you try, right? Like you want to learn a new instrument. You don't just like spend hours and hours and hours on learning that instrument. You do it in little increments, right? They always say like 15, 20 minutes, just kind of start it. So I think that, how you do it is up to you. How shall God show you how to be silent more often, if that's something that you're desiring, right?
Thank you. So yeah. Basically asking or saying, how can you show me to be more silent, and practicing it in little chunks, correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah. I mean, what does it mean to be silent? For some people, it's through dance. They're still moving their body. There's still, there's silence in their mind, though, that there's not this focus on the thoughts as much, right? So everyone's going to have a different kind of technique to do it. But I think sitting in silence, that's kind of the myth, right? That you have, that's meditation. But there's all kinds of old ancient traditions, moving spiritual artwork and things that, that you're moving your body, but you're still silent in your mind.
Love it. Thank you for bringing that about. As I think back at my life, some of the most focused or silent times that I've have been in fairly rigorous motions, and I never equated that with meditation. Thank you for helping me see that. I'm going to think more deeply on that. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to one of the questions from our live audience. This is from Scott. And Scott says, I woke up this morning and this first thought that came into my mind, which I believe was God speaking to me, the thought was from the Big Book. And it was, quote, we get to create the program we crave. Does higher power speak to you like this in thoughts? And how do you interpret that phrase? We get to create this program we crave. Thank you for your share.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think that there's definitely some times where I can hear God through the Big Book, especially in the meetings. I hear a lot of, God shots, we like to call it, right? Yeah, I was studying law of attraction work before coming into the recovery rooms as well. So it really just aligns everything that I was studying before, just like I can plop it into the big book and go, yeah, 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 yeah. Like clicks all the bells and whistles for me, right? Like I really resonate with it. But I'm not a big book thumper in the way that it's like it's the only way, right? So I think that everyone is going to pick it up however they need to. But I think that it's just like the energy work that I was talking about before. It's like if you feel like the world is against you, then are you really against yourself? Like if I'm actually not trusting of other people or not trusting of what they're saying, does that mean that I'm not trusting God? Does that mean that I'm not actually working the program? You know what I'm saying? So everything starts from within. So it's actually it's a science project that I'm doing for myself within myself, right? Like I'm looking at like all of these different habits and these different behaviors and saying, why am I doing them? Are they serving me? Am I actually gaining anything from this? Yeah. And so I think that, the power is within us as well, because if we are truly servants of God, children of God, then we are carrying out what God's will, in the material world. So yeah, I think that you do get to create your own reality in a lot of ways, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicki. Another question I have based on what you shared. Now, you've been doing meditation in your life for several years before coming into recovery. How has prayer and meditation, or has prayer and meditation changed or evolved since you have started in the rooms of recovery? And if so, how?
Since I've started in the rooms of recovery? That's a great question. I think it's become a deeper working part of my mind. I feel like since being in the rooms, I think I know I can connect faster. Like before it took me some time to like kind of really settle in and like actually hear, what is God's will for me. And now it's like it's becoming faster in terms of the things that he or she or it wants me to do for my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to follow up with that just a little bit. So what does the phrase in the 11th step principle, improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God? What does that mean to you in your practice of working step 11?
Mm-hmm. That this is the first primary relationship that I need to get down really, really well before I build and move into the everyday world. That it's actually even above my relationship with my children, above my relationship with, even myself. So there's the relationship with God first, and then there's the relationship with me, right? And that's all the recovery work and the fellowship work. And then there's everything else. God, recovery, that's the order of importance. And it has to remain that way, regardless, because as I'm starting to feel better, I start to gather new activities and new things that I'm responsible for, right? So service work, maybe my career is boosting, like things are starting to happen for me. Maybe my finances start to get in order. And so, all of these like new, great, powerful things are happening. And then that's why it says on page 85 that this is a spiritual program of action, and it's easy to rest on your laurels. It's easy to start to feel better, right? And just like feel like your head is above water and you're good. And then you don't do your program. You don't do your program of action. Like for me, I know I have a long list of amends that I'm actually still working on. I might have completed my steps, but I haven't completed all the amends. So I'm still working on that. So I notice when I'm like, kind of grasping and like pulling, like wanting to get some air in that area, right? And so that's where I ask God, please give me the courage and the words and the time. And so God then tells me what to do. So that's the unconscious contact, is like in all the areas of my life, show me how to live, that show me what to do. What's the next step?
Yeah, I love that. And for my my walk in recovery in my step 11 life, that improving that conscious contact uh, actually keeps my recovery fresh. You know, a couple
Mhm.
times in the last handful of years that I've been walking this path, there've been periods where I'm like, do I still have to do this? Have I not arrived yet? Am I not able to just, rest on my laurels here? And in those moments, it seems that eventually, if I continue walking the path and seeking that conscious contact, more is revealed. And all of a sudden,
Mhm.
this new light of, hey, here's something new that really helps out. Have you had any of those moments where more was revealed and all of a sudden there was additional light shown in an area that gave you more, I don't know, motivation, more gusto to continue moving forward with what the path you're on?
Yes, I have. Um, I think I know uh, now how to interact safely with certain people. Like there are just some people who just don't get me, and that's okay. And I don't need to explain myself to anyone, right? Like we don't cower in this program. We don't say sorry anymore for the way that we are. So my mom came over to visit. She saw all these signs on my wall that says, "What shall you have me do?" And she was just like that, kind of like, "What does that mean?" Like that, like judgy, very judgy. I don't understand what that. And she's deep in her addiction, needs recovery bad, and she refuses it. And she's admitted to me that she's a food addict, that she needs help. And I said, "This is what's working for me." And she's like, "I'm not 300 pounds though, so I can't do that." And it's like, well, that's your choice. That is your life. I am not here to heal people. I'm here to heal myself and tell my story. And if you pick up and resonate with what I'm doing, great. If you don't, great. I don't have to show you anything or prove to you anything. So the moment I let all of that go, it's like 1,000 pounds off of me every single day. I don't have to do it. I don't have to prove that I'm a good instructor anymore in my work. I teach at the university, and it's like I just do the best that I can. I show up to them genuinely and say, "Look, I'm having a rough day. I'm having a hard time." And they're like, "Thank you so much for being real with us." Because we see all these instructors who are just like stoic and, robots, and, they need real people in front of them, you know? So I just try to show my real, genuine self as much as I can. That's the area that's like been the most freeing for me.
I love that. And being real and being honest with things is amazing. And I have also experienced that when I accept the fact that I'm not your, to use a term, I'm not your savior.
Right.
I'm not your higher power. I'm not, I'll share my experience, strength, and hope and share how that has helped me, but how you choose. And that's such a burden. Like you said, 1,000 pounds off my shoulders. What a beautiful thing. All right, we have another question that came in from our live audience. Monroe asks, and this is about the second part of the phrase of the 11th step. What does it mean to you to have the power to carry out his will? And what does having that power look like?
To me, it means just completely admitting that I know nothing, like to stay humble, because I really don't know what this force is. It's not some god in the clouds with the white, beard and all. It's none of that. It's just like this. Again, it comes back down to energy. It's just this like knowing that no matter what happens, even if my physical body is no longer here, which will eventually happen. That's inevitable. Death and taxes, right? Those things are inevitable. So I will inevitably lose this physical body. So the power is in staying present with people and with myself as much as I can, because it's when I'm present moment and conscious contact and continuous contact. I think I want to add continuous, right? Because it's like, how do you notice when you're off and you're not connected and come back to it quickly, you know? And so the power is that's the superpower. It's like, oh, not feeling so connected right now, you know, and how do I come back? That's how I feel. That's how I see it. But again, I don't know anything. I just know that for however many 100 plus years, or what are we at now for this AA program?
Yeah, we're getting it close to 90 years. Yeah.
So it's obviously been working. It's been working for people. So I just keep following the recipe, and I'm lighter every day. My heart is lighter every day. That's the power.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And so you talked about, hey, what's the next good thing? What shall you have me do? When that thought of, hey, go brush your teeth, or go call this person, or whatever it is, and you just go, I don't want to do that. How do you overcome that? Because that's something in my life. In fact, just yesterday, I was sitting down in the afternoon and I had some time, and I was like, oh, what is the next good thing? And I actually sat and asked God, and he said, this project. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So how do you take that and go, okay, yes, I will do that?
It's funny, you know, procrastination is one of my character defects that I'm working on. I'm looking at it all the time. Like, I see the freaking package that I need to go take to the mailbox. It's all ready to go. It's going to take me less than 5 minutes to go and do it. And if I just did it, then I would feel like, I did that, you know, I can celebrate that. So that just, you know, I think it's when I'm inspired to do the actual thing. So like, if I know that I have a shit ton of grading to do, I know that I have, you know, all this prepping, this planning for, you know, all this celebration work that is coming, you know, my son's graduating from high school soon, all this stuff, you know, it's just like, it's exciting times to be alive right now, right? Because all these milestones are happening for me and for my family. And so it's like, to me though, when I look at those events and those, that stuff that it needs to happen to make those little precious moments for my children, I see that as I mean, the old brain says, I mean, the old Nicki would say, that's a bunch of unpaid labor, right? It's a bunch of work that I don't get, you know, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But then I think about how would I be of service to my children by creating these little, you know, these little memories for them. And then I also just give up like this idea that it needs to be like completed all at once. Like, if I just set the timer for 20 minutes and just chip away at something, then that's something that's doing something versus doing nothing. You know what I mean? And so that's what I have. I mean, I really, and it's not 100%, but I do see myself, you know, like practicing that as much as I can, you know?
Yeah. Thank you. Do you mind like walking through with us? You know, you talked about, hey, when there's chaos with the kids, I can take a minute and find peace and pause, take that time out. Do you mind kind of taking us through one of those pauses with you, how you do that, and verbally walk through it with us? Is that something you're willing to do?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I mean, I can just walk you through the grounding in process that I do. You know, if meditation is not something that you're comfortable with yet, it's, you know, you can call it different things until it is maybe comforting. You know, it's just like the higher power. It's like, you can call it whatever you want. So just sitting up, you know, a little bit more in your chair maybe, and looking away from the screen. If you've been looking at screen for a long time, especially looking long distances helps a lot, you know, for your eyesight as well, for your health of your eyes. And I just kind of just get myself centered on the chair and roll my shoulders back and down just to get a full deep breath and posture. And I just notice that I'm breathing. I don't change anything about the breathing. I just tell myself that I'm breathing. And your gaze can be long, looking down towards the floor, or your eyes can be closed if you're comfortable. So there's all kinds of variations. You don't have to do one or the other. You can focus in on an item like a candle or a pretty picture. And you're just noticing your breath. That's all you're doing. It's just telling yourself, I am breathing. And then I just take a few deep breaths. So I take a deep breath all the way from the bottom of the belly, all the way up through the top of the head, through the nose. And I see the breath traveling up through my body, right? And even actually beyond my body and kind of hovering over my head. And then I push out I really emphasize the exhale out through the mouth. So really emphasizing that exhale out, pushing out all of that toxin, all of the toxins, all of the negative energy, just pushing that away from me. And I do it again. Nice, deep, slow breaths. Just, noticing any sensations, telling that body to relax. And it can just be a few deep breaths like that, just kind of slowing down the world, just nice and easy.
So it's just it can be just a 30-second to 1 minute thing. And I feel recentered. I feel ready to deal with the chaos of the kids or whatever it may be again. Is that how that works for you?
Yeah. And that's just one technique. Sometimes I go into the bathroom and I throw stuff around, it's like, I don't know. There's not, I can't tell you, like, the moment I'm stuck in my head though, I try to get into my body as much as I can. So something physical and something playful, like, running outside, just for a minute and just taking just a quick brisk walk, right? And then coming back. If you're able to safely do that, or, just putting on music and starting to dance, or, something that gets you up out of your mind. Because our mind is what's the issue here. Our mind takes us down rabbit holes that we don't need to go, right? So getting up out of that is what's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I do appreciate that exercise you just walked us through. Before we close up here, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us before we go into that closing reading? And
just to take it easy on yourself. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I beat myself up a lot, that I don't have all of these things figured out right now in this moment. And it's like, if you go to a buffet, you don't eat all the things in the buffet all at once. You couldn't handle that, right? You couldn't handle all of the good things that are supposed to be coming to us, right? We have to have them in little bite-sized moments throughout the day, or just noticing these little micro wins, right? Like, I like to celebrate these little wins every day and say, what happened that was really great today? It was mailing off that stupid package that was sitting on my table for a good 2 weeks. That's a win. That's a good win. Love it. Celebrating the little wins. And I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing this with us. Thanks again, Nicki. That was a great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have other questions, please consider going to rico12.com/forum and join in our community there and ask those questions and answer others' questions that may come up. I invite the audience to come back next week. Next week, we get to hear from Kimia, another one of the spiritual gangsters who is, I've been fortunate to be able to sit back and kind of watch some things that are going on there with spiritual gangsters. And Kimia is a lightning bolt, and grateful to have her come and talk to us on step 12. She's excited to share about her recovery and living the principle of step 12. And grateful to have her come along next week, and really look forward to that. So come back next week, same time, same place. And if you listen on the podcast, it'll be up every Friday afternoon. All right. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the step 3 prayer that Nicki will say for us. Have at it, Nicki. Okay. So a moment of silence for all those suffering and still suffering in and out of these rooms. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Nicki. Come trudge this road with me, everybody. Work it. You are worth it.